I've been able to experience life for what it is, which is a treasure box full of opportunities.
It just taught me so much about myself, about what I could be interested in, and it started opening up all these world of possibilities.
The confidence I have in myself to know that my education, like how my ability is worth something, someone saw that worth in me, was really great.
Hello everybody, my name is Harry.
And I'm Tony, and together, along with 5 other runners, we're running the London Marathon on Sunday, 21st of April, to raise money for the Royal National Children's Springboard Foundation.
That's right, and to learn a little bit more about the charity, we're delighted to be joined by Ali Henderson, Chief Executive of Royal National Children's Springboard Foundation, to learn a little bit more about the impact that you're having across the country. Ali, thank you so much for being with us.
It's great to be here.
So, for those who wouldn't know, could you give us a little bit of background about the Royal National Children's Springboard Foundation and how you operate?
Yeah, and it's quite a mouthful, so I'll use the word Springboard instead of RNCSF. But Springboard was set up 10 years ago to try to provide opportunity for children and young people facing some of the greatest barriers to opportunity to have the opportunity to attend a boarding or independent day school. So our work has always been about seeking to create the best educational opportunities for those young people who really need access to those opportunities.
That's amazing. And how do you operate as an organisation with the community groups, and how do you help to create that vision?
Yeah, so we work, we're a huge network partnership group of over 200 schools. The schools are schools as diverse as very selective boarding schools through to state boarding schools that are non-selective through to independent day schools. And they're all schools that really want to widen access to the places, their bursary scheme places. But they work with Springboard to try to identify the young people who would never apply directly. We're seeking to try and use the bursary system as a way to prevent young people from falling into very complicated life paths. And we do that by working in partnership with community organisations who work in places where you can't commute to a good or outstanding state school, or with charities working with young people facing significant risks due to knife and drug crime, police involvement in the family, and we work with a lot of local authorities. So social workers seeking to try to find ways to great school places for children in care, because those are the children who faced some of the most persistent educational divide over the last 10 years.
So if we succeed in our goal of getting £20,000, how would you spend that as a charity? Where would those funds go to in terms of changing young people's lives?
Yeah, I mean, it would be transformational for us. We're a really small charity. We've got a tiny staff team. Our staff team we're very fortunate. We're funded entirely by income from other sources. So all donations given to our marathon runners will pass through directly to support the placement of children in schools. The way it works is that the schools themselves will predominantly fund the places, and we provide a really small share of the associated school fees, or quite often it's things like the bus fares, the extras, the things that make for a really happy time at school. We pass those through to the schools as part of a mixed funding model. 90% of the school fees are met by the schools themselves. We pass a small amount of donations through, and that unlocks those places. So there's a massive multiplier. So £20,000 for us would be 4 young people being able to attend a boarding school. And that's, the transformational impact of being able to sleep at school, being able to be part of that boarding house system, being able to access the facilities, which of course we all know are amazing, but more importantly, to having those relationships of trust that you build with your house parents. It's a very direct kind of connection to cause. I hope that inspires you both as you run along.
It will. That's incredible, and I think one thing that I have learned quite quickly is that amazing people are everywhere around the country, but opportunity isn't necessarily there for many people. So obviously what Springboard is doing is incredible in helping to widen access to amazing opportunities for people across the country. I wondered if there's any perspectives or myths that you had that actually would help people to better understand the role that Springboard is doing in helping to drive social mobility.
Yeah. We don't stand for necessarily considering that an independent school is better than the state school. What we stand for is the power of a great education. And as you say, Harry, for quite a lot of young people, they just cannot access a really good or outstanding state school within a commutable distance. And particularly for children in care. The children in care at the moment are already given priority access to their local state schools. But for many children in care, what they really need is access to a longer school day, is access to a smaller class size, is access to all the amazing stuff that happens on the sports field, or in the drama department, or in your arts schools. And the reality is that that is sometimes not available in their local state school. And if we take the logic that a child in care, a vulnerable child, really should be prioritised for whatever is the right school for them, then we set aside whether that school is boarding or day, whether that school is independently owned or state maintained, it doesn't matter. And you know, where we work, we're really heartened by the engagement of so many social workers and foster carers and local schools who are sort of local authority professionals. What they want is the best for their children, and they are the state's children. So you know, I think it's it might not be a very trendy thing to say, but actually the most important thing is to find the right school for the right child, and that's what we're talking about.
So, Ali, that was amazing to hear, and obviously we read through this amazing impact report from 2023. Just wondering if you could share a little bit around the impact from the last couple of years, and perhaps where the organisation's going in the future.
Yeah, and what some of the really heartening statistics that came out of the piece of analysis that sat behind that report, which was done by an external research firm who worked with the University of Nottingham, are some extraordinary stories of transformation on an individual level, but actually on a cohort level. There's been just over 1,000 springboarders supported to date. 95%, more than 95% of those young people have gone through to securing 2 A-levels. Now that's no small thing in the context of the young people that we support. You know, most children in care don't even secure an English and Maths 5 or above. So in a classroom, only 1 in 10 of a child in care would be securing an English or Maths 5 and above. And children from disadvantaged backgrounds, it's 70% do not secure an English or Maths GCSE at 5 and above. Whereas for springboarders, what the impact evidence showed us is you're 4 times more likely, by access to an independent or a boarding school, to be able to secure that foundational piece of an English or Maths 5 score and above, but more so actually 5 times more likely to secure 2 or more A-levels. And going forward, the real transformation, and it's not everything, but it's a pretty good marker, going to university is often the firmest foundation for fulfilling careers, and the vast majority of springboarders go through to university, so 80% of our cohort so far has gone through to university, and more than a quarter have gone through to a high tariff university, a selective university. Those are pretty mind-boggling statistics when you consider the kind of backgrounds of the young people that we're avowedly targeting for these opportunities.
Amazing. From the impacts that you just shared in the impact report, what would you say you are kind of most proudest of? And is there a story perhaps of one of the springboarders that resonates most with you?
That's a good question. I mean, we were a relatively young charity, as I said to you before, we're pretty small. We only started 10 years ago. So when you think back, I think within 10 years, to have 1,200 young people who've all been to extraordinary schools, that is something to be very proud of. It's not something I can be proud of, it's something the whole team has worked really hard to do, but more so actually the 200 schools that we've managed to secure working with. So yeah, but on a daily basis, we're really fortunate. We have a direct connection to the young people we support. We know all springboarders in schools. A big part of the model is that they have access to their schools, but they also know behind the scenes there is the Springboard team who know them well. And that means I know many of them really well. And you know, just yesterday I was talking to a young man called Peter, who's now at university, and he was describing how he unfortunately was not able to be looked after by his birth parents. He never knew his dad, his mum wasn't able to look after him and his siblings. His granny took over the care of him, but actually wouldn't have been able to do so if she hadn't have known that he could go to the local independent school, which was a school that had both day and boarding. And so he and his siblings were able to start in a day school and stay through when his granny sadly died. They boarded, and they were able to have that continuity of care, all those relationships that they built with their house parents. He describes that as being the thing that kept their family together. So stories like that awesome. Keep those in your head when you're running your 20th mile.
Absolutely, and it's not just about the impact on the individuals, but there's also the people, the springboarders, but there's also the impact on the people around the springboarders as well. Yeah. What's your kind of takeaway in terms of how it's impacted, I guess, the broader fabric of the schools and potentially UK as a whole?
Yeah, it's a really big part of our aspirations as a charity is to create that ripple effect of both, broadened horizons and aspirations amongst the family members and the communities from which young people come. And that happens because we have cohorts of springboarders from particular places. So in East London, there are 90 young people currently in boarding schools across the UK from a particular community in and around the Tower Hamlets area. So the ripple effect in that place of having large numbers of young people going on to progressive universities, to really ambitious careers, is really palpable. But you speak to a really important point, Harry, because it's not just that. Actually, for us, it's as much about the ripple effect they can have in schools. So really often on our school visits, and the team's often out in schools, what we hear is that actually springboarders give as much to their school community as they gain. You know, they are a visible reminder every day of the vibrancy of modern Britain.
What's your experience with the schools at the moment, Harry? Are you finding that because the benefits of the springboarders enriching their community, as well as the impact you're having on the school children, are you finding that more and more schools are wanting to work with you as you become more and more well known across the independent sector?
Yes, to some extent. I mean, it's clear that the independent school sector is under quite a lot of scrutiny, and actually for us that's as much an opportunity as a threat. So there are lots of schools saying they always sought to be a really relevant force in the local community, but ever more so now than before. So widening access programmes in terms of bursary schemes have become really, really relevant. And yes, so we do have a lot of schools seeking to work with us, and our work, I think, is a really important reminder to schools that actually you want a diverse and interesting pupil role. You want it for reasons of relevance and to counter scrutiny, but you actually want it because it makes your school a more interesting place. And yeah, so we're feeling optimistic about our ability to keep persuading schools, as I say, to predominantly fund the placements. The donations that we get are really just a small amount. I mean, not a small amount perhaps for your donors, but it's an amount that kind of unlocks that nascent interest that's there anyway in the schools to have a springboarder in their community.
And you seem to be broadening your scope as well, moving more into sort of younger years rather than just senior education, moving into that pre-senior education as well.
Yeah, a bit to some extent. So I think what the data tells us is that actually primary schools in the UK are often a really great place to be, and that there isn't a huge gap in terms of the educational divide at primary level. Where the educational divide becomes most pronounced is in that 11 to 16 period. So as you say, we've got a sixth form entry programme where actually for a large number of young people going to their local sixth form college is not going to be the thing that they need at that moment in their lives. But equally, actually, when you speak to 11+, which is another big part of our work, we've got a growing numbers of young people that we want to capture early. So you've got a long lead-in time to those big exam moments where you've got the opportunity to spend 5-7 years learning how to learn outside the classroom, learning how to build great relationships, and actually coming in at 11 really is the kind of best foundation for that long-going transformational social mobility story.
Amazing. And Ali, as a very competitive sports person yourself, what would your tips be for the 7 runners this year?
I'm in awe of you all. I don't envy your task. I'm incredibly grateful to you. It's a long old race. So I cannot convey an advice. I'm woefully ill-equipped to do so. I'm going to push it back to you. What is your advice? Halfway through your training, more than halfway through your training.
8 weeks to go.
8 weeks to go. I think it's about just relax into it, keep it going, enjoy it, have fun. If you're not enjoying it, then it's just not going to work on the day.
Yeah.
I'd probably say, so my knee has a bit of a niggle at the moment. Stretching afterwards and a little bit of strength training on my legs has been really helpful.
Yeah.
Because that's where the pressure's lying for me. Ali, thank you very much for your time. I think we both really appreciate it and have learned a lot. And we will hopefully do you proud on April 21st and raise lots of money for an amazing charity.
Well, thank you both, and to the other 5 unable to join us today for doing this for us. It will make a massive difference.
Thank you.